I'm Mackenzie Walker, 32, and I own the Azure Bay Resort, valued at $15 million. My sister Amber has no idea. We haven't spoken in years, but somehow I received an invitation to her $300,000 engagement party. The venue? My resort. When I walked in wearing my simple black dress, she called me a beggar and tried to have security remove me. Before I tell you how I went from being called a beggar at my own resort to watching my sister's face turn white as snow, let me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy family karma stories. Growing up in Seattle, our middle-class family wasn't poor, but we weren't wealthy either. Dad worked as an accountant, Mom taught elementary school, and we lived comfortably in a modest three-bedroom house in the suburbs. From the beginning, it was clear who the favorite child was. Amber, 2 years younger than me, had the perfect blonde curls, the winning smile, and the kind of natural charisma that made people gravitate toward her. I was the opposite. Bookish, practical, with unruly brown hair and more interested in numbers than social climbing. While Amber spent hours in front of the mirror, I was sketching business plans in my notebook. At 12, I started my first venture, a lemonade stand that I expanded to 3 locations operated by neighborhood kids I'd hired. By 14, I was tutoring younger students in math and saving every penny. Mackenzie is just so practical, my mother would say with a sigh, as if it were a disappointment. Meanwhile, Amber's every achievement, winning the 6th grade talent show or being asked to a dance by a popular boy, was celebrated with dinners out and excessive praise. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my teenage years. Not that I wanted to be like Amber. She was becoming increasingly obsessed with status, designer labels, and finding ways to elevate herself socially. While I worked summer jobs and saved for college, Amber spent her time at the mall with her equally status-conscious friends, our parents happily funding her lifestyle. "You'll never get anywhere being so stingy," Amber told me once when I refused to loan her money for a designer purse. "No one successful pinches pennies like you do." I ignored her. By 18, I had saved enough to pay for my first year at Washington State University, where I studied hospitality management. My parents helped, but their contribution was minimal compared to what they gave Amber for her private liberal arts college, a school she chose primarily because the right kind of people went there. College was a blur of classes, homework, and jobs. I worked as a front desk clerk at a local hotel, waited tables on weekends, and did freelance bookkeeping for small businesses. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. Meanwhile, Amber's social media showed her at sorority parties, on spring break trips to Cancun, and shopping sprees funded by our parents. During my junior year, I used my savings to invest in a small catering business with a classmate. 6 months later, it failed spectacularly when our biggest client canceled and we couldn't cover the overhead. I lost everything. When I went home that Christmas, defeated and broke, Amber couldn't resist twisting the knife. "So much for being the smart, business-minded sister," she said over dinner. "Looks like you're the family charity case now." Our parents gently scolded her, but didn't exactly leap to my defense. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would succeed on my own terms, and I would never again let my family make me feel small. After graduation, while Amber moved to New York to find herself, funded by our parents, I took a management position at a mid-sized hotel chain. I worked 80-hour weeks, learned everything about the business, and continued saving. When the regional manager position opened 3 years later, I applied. They gave it to someone with less experience, but better connections. That rejection became my motivation. I researched properties, studied market trends, and connected with potential investors. At night, I developed a business plan for a boutique resort that would combine luxury with sustainability, something unique in the Pacific Northwest market. 5 years ago, after countless rejections and setbacks, I finally secured enough funding to purchase a rundown inn on the Washington coast. The property had potential, spectacular ocean views, private beach access, and enough land for expansion. Everyone thought I was crazy to pour everything into it. The first year was brutal. Construction delays, permit issues, and a contractor who disappeared with $20,000. I lived in one of the unfinished rooms, showering at the local gym and eating ramen most nights. But slowly, room by room, Azure Bay Resort took shape. What started as a 12-room and has now grown into a 40-suite luxury destination with a farm-to-table restaurant, spa, and private villas. Celebrities stay with us. We've been featured in travel magazines. Last year, we turned a profit of $4 million. And through it all, I told no one in my family. Not after years of dismissal and doubt. Our parents knew I owned some kind of hotel, but I let them believe it was a small, modest operation. Amber, who now moved in wealthy circles and had recently gotten engaged to Bradley Pierce, heir to a hedge fund fortune, had no idea at all. We barely spoke anymore. Our interactions were limited to obligatory birthday texts and awkward conversations at Christmas if we both happened to visit our parents. The last time I saw Amber at our cousin's wedding 2 years ago, she looked at my simple dress, chosen because I was in the middle of renovations and watching expenses, and whispered to her friend loud enough for me to hear. "That's my sister. No fashion sense whatsoever. Probably bought that at a thrift store." I let her believe what she wanted. My success wasn't for show, it was for me. I drove a modest car, lived in a comfortable but not extravagant apartment in town, and poured most profits back into the business. Only my close friends and my staff knew the truth about my success. So when the digital invitation arrived in my inbox, celebrate the engagement of Amber Walker and Bradley Pierce at the exclusive Azure Bay Resort, I nearly spilled my coffee all over my laptop. The invitation glowed on my screen, adorned with digital flowers and flowing script. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. My sister was having her $300,000 engagement party at my resort. My resort that she had no idea I owned. I immediately called Diana, my resort manager and closest confidant. "Did you know about this?" I asked when she picked up.
About what?
Diana sounded genuinely confused. "The Pierce Walker engagement party. It's booked at Azure Bay."
Oh,
"Yes, came in through the events team last month. Bradley Pierce's assistant made the arrangements. Biggest booking of the season. They've reserved the entire north wing and the main ballroom." Diana paused. "Wait, Walker? Is that your sister?" "One and the same," I confirmed, still staring at the invitation. "She has no idea I own this place." Diana let out a low whistle. "Well, this is interesting. What are you going to do?" What was I going to do? My first instinct was to call Amber and reveal everything, just to see her reaction. But that felt petty. My second thought was to decline the invitation and stay far away that weekend. But that felt like hiding. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "It's in 3 weeks." After hanging up with Diana, I called my best friend Haley, who had stood by me through every up and down since college. "Go," she said immediately after I explained the situation. "Are you kidding? This is the perfect opportunity for closure. Besides, I'm dying to see the look on her face when she realizes she's been lording her wealthy fiancé over the owner of the very resort she's trying to impress everyone at." "That feels petty," I said, even though part of me agreed with her. "It's not petty to simply exist in your own success, Mac. You've worked your ass off for this. You deserve to be there." I thought back to our last family gathering. Our parents had hosted a barbecue for their 40th anniversary. Amber had just started dating Bradley, and she spent the entire day dropping references to his family's wealth and connections. "Bradley's taking me to Paris next month," she'd said loudly as we helped Mom in the kitchen. "His family has the most adorable pied à terre near the Eiffel Tower." When I joined a conversation wearing my comfortable jeans and a t-shirt from a local brewery, Amber had looked me up and down with thinly veiled disgust. "Oh, Mackenzie," she'd said with fake sympathy. "We really need to take you shopping sometime. Those clothes are just so shabby. Don't you want to make something of yourself?" I had just signed the papers to expand Azure Bay with 6 luxury villas that week. Each one would rent for $5,000 per night during peak season. But I just smiled and said, "I'm comfortable with who I am, Amber." Now, staring at this invitation, I had a choice to make. Show up and potentially create family drama, or stay away and miss seeing my sister's comeuppance. The decision haunted me for days. I threw myself into work, overseeing the installation of heated floors in the new spa building and interviewing potential chefs for our second restaurant. But the invitation sat on my desk, demanding an answer. A week later, Diana brought it up again during our morning walkthrough. "The Pierce Walker party planner was here yesterday," she said casually as we inspected the new landscaping. "She's quite the character." "How so?" I asked, trying to sound only mildly interested. "Very demanding. Insists on white roses everywhere, even though they're out of season and will cost a fortune. Wants the staff to wear specific shades of blue to match the aesthetic." "Oh, and she mentioned that the bride's sister probably won't attend because, and I quote, she can't afford to buy something decent to wear and would embarrass herself." Something hardened in me. RSVP yes, I decided on the spot. "I'll be attending. As the owner or as a guest?" Diana asked with a raised eyebrow. I considered this. If I went as the owner, Amber would know immediately. The surprise would be ruined, and she'd have time to craft some narrative that saved face. But if I attended as just another guest— "As a guest," I said firmly. "Don't tell anyone on staff except James and Marisol." James headed our security team, and Marisol was our events director. Both had been with me since the beginning, and were fiercely loyal. And what should they do when your sister arrives? Business as usual. Exactly. No one acknowledges me as anything other than another guest. I'll use the main entrance instead of my private access. I'll even book a room under my name to make it look legitimate. Diana looked concerned. "Are you sure about this? It seems like it could get messy." "I'm sure," I said, though my stomach was already knotting with anxiety. It's time Amber sees me for who I really am. The next 2 weeks flew by in a flurry of preparation, both for the engagement party and for my attendance at it. I went shopping for an outfit, deliberately choosing something elegant but understated, a simple black cocktail dress from a local designer, paired with a delicate necklace my grandmother had left me. Nothing flashy that would draw attention, but nothing that screamed charity case either. As the event drew closer, my anxiety increased. Diana kept me updated on the party plans, which grew more extravagant by the day. White roses were being flown in from Ecuador. A 10-piece orchestra had been hired. The menu featured Kobe beef and rare truffles. The estimated cost had ballooned to over $300,000, more than most people's weddings. "Your sister came for the tasting yesterday," Diana reported 3 days before the event. She referred to herself as a resort influencer and tried to negotiate a discount in exchange for posting about us on her Instagram. I couldn't help but laugh. How many followers does she have? About 12,000. Mostly college friends and socialites. "We get more organic traffic than that in a day," I said, shaking my head. "What did you tell her?" "That I'd have to check with management, of course." Diana grinned. "She also mentioned that you probably wouldn't show up because my sister has always been intimidated by successful people." Her words, not mine. That sealed it. Not only would I attend, but I would hold my head high throughout the entire evening. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I went down to the beach below the resort and walked along the shoreline, listening to the waves crash against the rocks. This place, this accomplishment was mine. No matter what happened tomorrow, no one could take that away from me. As dawn broke over the horizon, I made my final decision. I would go to this party not seeking revenge or validation, but simply to stand in my truth. If Amber couldn't handle that, it would be her problem, not mine. The day of the engagement party arrived with picture-perfect weather, clear skies, gentle breeze, and spectacular sunset views predicted for the evening. From my apartment in town, I could see the resort perched on the cliffside, white tents being erected on the lawn for the cocktail hour. Florists' vans and catering trucks clogged the service entrance. I took my time getting ready, doing my own hair and makeup with care. The black dress fit perfectly, skimming my curves without being too tight or revealing. I added my grandmother's pearl necklace, simple diamond studs, and low heels. The overall effect was elegant but understated. Exactly what I wanted. At 6:30 p.m., I drove to the resort and handed my keys to Marco, our regular valet. He did a double take and used to seeing me arrive at the front entrance. "Ms. Walker, I didn't realize you were coming through the main entrance tonight," he said as he opened my car door. "Just treating tonight like any other event, Marco," I replied quietly. "Remember what we discussed? I'm just a guest tonight." He nodded discreetly and took my keys. I walked up the grand staircase to the main entrance, passing through the doors I usually entered as the owner. It felt strange being on this side of the experience. The lobby had been transformed for the occasion. Thousands of white roses and orchids created an ethereal garden effect. Crystal chandeliers had been brought in to supplement our regular lighting, and a champagne fountain bubbled in the center of the space. Staff members dressed in the specific shade of blue amber had requested circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres and flutes of champagne. I accepted a glass from a server who managed to keep her face neutral despite the unusual circumstance of serving her boss. Taking a deep breath, I moved toward the ballroom where the main event would be held. The ballroom was even more extravagant. Every surface gleamed with gold and crystal accents. At the far end, an enormous ice sculpture of entwined hearts took center stage. A custom dance floor had been installed, with Amber and Bradley's initials inlaid in gold. The 10-piece orchestra was setting up on a raised platform, while tech crews adjusted specialty lighting. I estimated at least $300,000 had been spent on this single evening, the equivalent of what it had cost me to renovate 6 guest rooms last year. The extravagance was both impressive and slightly obscene. Guests were beginning to arrive, most in formal attire that probably cost more than what many people make in a month. I recognized some local celebrities, a few tech billionaires, and several of our regular high-end clients. None of them recognized me as the owner. I had always maintained a low profile, letting Diana be the public face of the resort. I spotted some distant relatives I hadn't seen in years, our mother's cousins from Portland, an uncle from my father's side. They looked at me with vague recognition but seemed uncertain whether they should approach. "Mackenzie? Is that you?" My cousin Rachel finally came over. "We haven't seen you in forever. Your parents said you were working at a hotel or something." "Something like that," I said with a smile. "How are you, Rachel?" "Oh, same old. Can you believe all this?" She gestured around at the opulence. "Amber certainly knows how to make a statement. Speaking of which, I should probably go congratulate her. She just arrived with Bradley, and they're making quite the entrance." I turned to see my sister and her fiancé greeting guests near the ballroom entrance. Amber looked stunning in a designer gown that probably cost more than a car, her blonde hair swept up in an elaborate style, diamonds glittering at her throat and ears. Bradley stood beside her, tall and conventionally handsome in his tuxedo, beaming with the confidence of a man born into wealth and privilege. For a moment, I considered slipping away before she noticed me. But I straightened my spine and reminded myself that I belonged here more than anyone else in the room. This was my resort, my achievement, my life's work. I moved through the crowd, making my way toward the couple. Amber was laughing at something a guest had said, her hand possessively clutching Bradley's arm. "Yes, we discovered this place during a weekend getaway," she was saying. I knew immediately it would be perfect. The exclusivity, the views, it simply screams taste and refinement. "Congratulations, Amber," I said, stepping into her circle. "The party looks beautiful." Amber's smile froze on her face. Her eyes widened slightly, first in recognition, then in obvious dismay. "Mackenzie," she said flatly. "You came." "I was invited," I replied simply. Bradley extended his hand. "You must be the mysterious sister. Amber's mentioned you, though not in much detail."
"I'm Bradley."
"Nice to meet you," I said, shaking his hand. "Congratulations on your engagement." Amber's eyes darted around the room, clearly concerned about who might be watching this interaction. "I'm surprised you made it. I know money's been tight for you." "I managed," I said with a slight smile. Amber's gaze traveled from my face down to my simple dress and sensible shoes, then back up again. Her expression shifted from surprise to something uglier, disdain mixed with embarrassment. "Well," she said tightly, It's certainly brave of you to come dressed like that. This is a formal event at an exclusive resort, not a job interview at the mall. Several guests within earshot turned to look, curiosity piqued by her sharp tone. I think I'm dressed appropriately, I said calmly. Amber, she looks fine, Bradley murmured, looking uncomfortable. But Amber wasn't listening. Her cheeks had flushed pink, and I could see the familiar signs of her temper building, the same expression she'd had as a child when something threatened to steal her spotlight. Did you even read the invitation? It specifically said black tie. Her voice was getting louder. Everyone here is wearing designer labels. That dress looks like you bought it at a discount store. It's a local designer, actually. I corrected her gently. God, this is so typical, Amber hissed, lowering her voice but not her intensity. You always have to make everything about you. Showing up looking like this, just to embarrass me on my special day. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone, I said evenly. I'm here to celebrate your engagement. Celebrate? She laughed bitterly. You're jealous. You always have been. I'm marrying into one of the wealthiest families in the country, and you can't stand it. So, you show up looking like a charity case to make me look bad. Bradley touched her arm. Amber, people are watching. Let's just. She shook him off.
No, Bradley.
I'm not going to let her ruin our night. Amber turned and scanned the room, her eyes landing on James, our head of security, who was positioned discreetly by the door. Security. Over here, please. James approached cautiously, his expression carefully neutral even though I knew he was witnessing his boss being berated at her own resort. Is there a problem, ma'am? He asked professionally.
Amber pointed at me.
This woman is not dressed appropriately and is causing a disturbance. I need you to escort her out. James looked between us, his training battling with his knowledge of the actual situation. Ma'am, I don't see any disturbance. Are you blind? Amber snapped. Look at her. Everyone else is in formal attire. She looks like a beggar who wandered in off the street. She'll ruin the aesthetic of our photos. The guests nearest to us had fallen silent, watching the drama unfold. I stood perfectly still, allowing Amber to continue digging herself deeper. Kick that beggar out, Amber insisted, her voice carrying across the now hushed ballroom. She'll ruin everything. James looked at me, his eyes asking what I wanted him to do. I gave a slight shake of my head. I'm sorry, ma'am, he said to Amber. I don't have grounds to remove another guest. Do you know who I am? Amber demanded. This is my engagement party. My fiancé is paying a fortune for this venue. Get your manager right now. Amber, stop, Bradley said more firmly. You're making a scene? But Amber was beyond reason now, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. I want to speak to whoever's in charge immediately. As if on cue, Diana appeared at my side, elegant in her tailored suit. Is there a problem here? She asked. Amber turned to her with relief. Yes, finally. Someone with authority. I need this woman removed from my event immediately. Diana's expression remained professionally pleasant. May I ask why? Just look at her. She's clearly crashed the party. She's not dressed properly, and she's trying to embarrass me. She's my sister, and she's always been jealous of me. I see, Diana said calmly. And you are? I'm the bride, Amber nearly shouted. Amber Walker. This is my engagement party. Of course, Ms. Walker. The sister of our owner. Amber stopped, confusion crossing her face.
What?
No, you've misunderstood. I'm not the owner's sister. I don't even know who owns this place. Some investment group, probably. Actually, Diana said, Azure Bay Resort is privately owned by Mackenzie Walker. The silence that followed was absolute. Amber stared at Diana, then at me, her mouth slightly open. That's not possible, she stammered. Bradley looked between us, realization dawning on his face. Wait, Mackenzie Walker? I've read about you in Forbes. You're the hospitality entrepreneur who transformed a failing and into a luxury destination. That's you? I nodded, maintaining my composure even as I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me. That's me. Amber's face had drained of all color. "This is a joke," she whispered. "It has to be." "If you'd like verification," Diana said helpfully, "you can check the plaque in the lobby. Or perhaps you'd like to see Ms. Walker's office. It has a lovely view of the property." Amber turned to me, her eyes wide with shock and the first traces of horror. You own Azure Bay? But you never said anything. All these years." "You never asked," I replied simply. The ballroom had fallen completely silent, everyone watching our exchange with undisguised interest. Amber stood frozen, her perfect makeup unable to hide the shock and mortification spreading across her face. "This is ridiculous," she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you owned this place, I would know." "Would you?" I asked quietly. "We've barely spoken in years, Amber. And when we have, you've never once asked about my life or my work." Bradley stepped forward, curiosity overcoming his embarrassment. "So, you really own Azure Bay Resort? The whole thing?" I nodded. "Since 5 years ago, though it looked very different then." "That's impressive," he said, and I could see genuine respect in his eyes. "I've stayed at luxury properties all over the world, and this place ranks among the best. The attention to detail, the sustainability initiatives, it's remarkable." "Thank you," I said, feeling a moment of unexpected connection with my sister's fiancé. Amber had recovered enough to realize she was losing control of the situation. "I need to see proof," she demanded. "I want to speak to the actual owner right now." Diana exchanged a look with me, then gestured toward the lobby. "Perhaps you'd like to see the dedication plaque? It was installed when we reopened after the renovation." Without waiting for an answer, Diana began walking toward the lobby. After a moment's hesitation, Amber followed, practically dragging Bradley with her. I walked behind them, aware that several curious guests were trailing us to witness the drama unfold. In the lobby, beside the main reception desk, hung a simple but elegant bronze plaque that I had insisted on despite Diana's suggestion for something more prominent. It read, "Azure Bay Resort established 2020 Mackenzie Walker, founder and owner, creating sanctuary through hospitality." Beside the text was a professional photograph of me in a business suit, looking confident and successful, a far cry from the beggar Amber had just tried to have removed. Amber stared at the plaque, then at me, then back at the plaque. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out to touch the engraved letters of my name. "This whole time," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "All those years you were struggling, working those jobs, living in that tiny apartment. I was building this. I finished for her. Investment by investment, renovation by renovation." Bradley was studying the plaque with newfound interest. "Wait, you're that Mackenzie Walker? The one who pioneered the eco-luxury concept in the Pacific Northwest? I read about you in Business Insider last year. They called you one of the most innovative hoteliers of your generation." Amber's head whipped around to look at her fiancé, horrified to hear him praising me. "You've read about her? You knew who she was?" she demanded. Bradley looked confused. "I didn't make the connection that she was your sister. You've barely mentioned her, and never by her full name. Just my sister, or sometimes poor Mackenzie." The term poor Mackenzie hit me like a physical blow. So that's how she'd been referring to me all these years. Diana, ever the professional crisis manager, smoothly intervened. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere private? The Ocean View Suite is available if you'd like some family time." Amber ignored the suggestion, her shock giving way to something harder, a defensive anger I recognized from our childhood. "This was your plan all along, wasn't it? Let me book my engagement party here without telling me, just so you could humiliate me in front of everyone." "That's not true," I said firmly. "I had no idea you were planning your event here until I received the invitation. Your fiancé's assistant made the arrangements through our events team." "It's true," Diana confirmed. Ms. Walker, Mackenzie, was quite surprised when she learned about the booking. Amber wasn't listening. "This is just like you, plotting and scheming in the shadows. You couldn't just be happy for me, could you? You had to find a way to steal my moment." "Amber," Bradley said quietly but firmly, She didn't steal anything. This is her business. She built it from nothing. If anything, we should be apologizing for how you just treated her. I hadn't expected an ally in Bradley, and from Amber's expression, neither had she. Her face contorted with a mixture of embarrassment and betrayal. "Whose side are you on?" she demanded. "I'm not taking sides," Bradley replied calmly. "I'm just stating facts. Your sister owns this amazing resort that we chose for our engagement party. Instead of being proud of her accomplishment, you just tried to have her thrown out of her own establishment. That's not a good look, Amber." More guests had gathered in the lobby, drawn by the commotion. Among them, I spotted our parents, who must have just arrived. They stood at the edge of the crowd, confusion evident on their faces as they tried to make sense of the scene before them.
Mom? Dad?
I called, feeling suddenly like a child again despite standing in the business I had built. They pushed through the onlookers, my mother's eyes darting between Amber's stricken face and my composed one. "What's happening?" my father asked. "We just got here, and everyone's in the lobby instead of the ballroom." Amber turned to them, tears now streaming down her face. Did you know? Did you know this whole time that Mackenzie owns Azure Bay?" My parents exchanged bewildered glances. "Owns what?" my mother asked. "This resort," I said quietly. "I own Azure Bay Resort. All of it." My father's jaw literally dropped. "This place? This entire resort is yours." I nodded. "But you told us you managed a small hotel on the coast," my mother said, her voice faint with shock. "I never actually said that," I corrected gently. "I said I worked in hospitality on the coast."
You assumed the rest.
My father looked around at the luxury surrounding us, the marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the priceless art on the walls, then back at me with new eyes. "You built all this?" "From the ground up," I confirmed. 5 years ago, it was a rundown and on the verge of bankruptcy. Now, it's one of the top-rated luxury resorts in the country. Pride bloomed on my father's face, an expression I'd seen directed at Amber countless times, but rarely at me. "That's incredible, Mackenzie." My mother was still processing, her hand at her throat. "Why didn't you tell us?" I hesitated, aware of the many guests listening to our family drama unfold. "Maybe we should continue this conversation privately," I suggested. "No," Amber interjected, her voice sharp. "I want everyone to hear how you set me up for humiliation. You knew I had no idea this was your hotel, and you let me walk right into your trap." "There was no trap, Amber," I said tiredly. "This isn't about you." "Everything is always about you, isn't it, Mackenzie?" she snapped. "Poor, hard-working Mackenzie, so much better than the rest of us, because you built everything yourself. Well, congratulations on your big reveal. I hope it was worth destroying my engagement party." With that, she turned and stormed through the crowd, leaving Bradley standing awkwardly beside me. "I'm sorry about that," he said after a moment. "She's under a lot of pressure with the wedding planning." "It's okay," I said, though it wasn't. "You should probably go after her." He nodded, then hesitated. "For what it's worth, what you've built here is extraordinary. I'd love to hear more about it sometime from a business perspective." After Bradley left to find Amber, Diana smoothly took control of the situation. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please return to the ballroom, dinner will be served shortly. The orchestra is ready to begin." As the guests reluctantly dispersed, many casting curious glances back at me, I was left standing with my parents in the lobby of the empire I had built without their knowledge or support. "I think," my father said slowly, "that we have a lot to talk about." The next hour passed in a blur. Diana escorted my parents and me to my private office, a space they had never seen, filled with awards and recognitions I had never shared with them. The resort operations continued smoothly under Diana's capable management while I sat across from my parents, finally telling them the full story of my success. After college, when my first business failed, I decided I needed to make it on my own. I explained, watching their expressions shift between shock, pride, and something that looked like regret. I didn't tell anyone in the family because I was tired of being compared to Amber. Tired of never measuring up. We never meant to make you feel that way, my mother said softly. Maybe not intentionally, I acknowledged. But you did. Every time you praised Amber's social connections while dismissing my business ideas as practical, like that was a bad thing. Every time you funded her lifestyle while telling me I needed to learn the value of hard work. My father looked down at his hands. We thought we were doing the right thing. You seemed so independent, so capable. Amber needed more guidance. Guidance isn't the same as favoritism, I said, the words coming out more sharply than I'd intended. Do you know what Amber called me at the last family gathering? The family charity case. And neither of you contradicted her. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We failed you, didn't we? I didn't answer immediately. Part of me wanted to deny it, to ease their guilt. But another part, the part that had been silenced for too long, needed to speak the truth. In some ways, yes, I finally said. But your failure became my motivation. Every time someone told me I couldn't do something, I worked harder to prove them wrong. So, in a strange way, maybe I should thank you. My father reached across the desk and took my hand, a gesture so unexpected that I almost pulled away. No, he said firmly. Don't thank us for hurting you. We should have seen what was happening. We should have supported you equally. I'm so proud of what you've built here, Mackenzie. So incredibly proud. But I'm ashamed that you felt you couldn't share it with us. Our conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Diana entered, her expression carefully neutral. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, but Ms. Walker, Amber, is asking to speak with you. She's in the Rose Suite. My parents exchanged a glance. Do you want us to come with you? My mother asked. I considered this, then shook my head.
No.
This is between Amber and me. The Rose Suite was one of our premium accommodations, featuring panoramic ocean views and a private terrace. I found Amber there, sitting on the edge of the king-sized bed, her elaborate hairstyle now slightly disheveled, her makeup smudged from crying. She looked up when I entered, but didn't speak. I took a seat in the armchair across from her, maintaining some distance. For a long moment, neither of us broke the silence. You must be enjoying this, she finally said, her voice hoarse. Enjoying what?
This.
She gestured around us. The big reveal. The shocked looks. Everyone discovering that the sister they thought was a nobody actually owns the place. It's like something out of a movie. I didn't plan it this way, I said quietly. Didn't you? You could have told me when I booked the venue. You could have said something before tonight. Would you have believed me? I asked honestly. Or would you have accused me of lying to try to outshine you? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Why did you keep it a secret all these years? She asked instead. From all of us? I considered my words carefully. At first, it was because I wasn't sure I would succeed. I'd already failed once, and I couldn't bear your mockery if I failed again. Then, as the resort grew, it became mine. Something that had nothing to do with our family dynamics or your opinion of me. Something that was just for me. So it was about spite, she said flatly. No, I corrected her. It was about self-preservation. About building something that couldn't be diminished by your comments or mom and dad's comparisons. Amber was silent for a long moment. I always thought you judged me, she finally said. For caring about appearances. For wanting nice things. For using mom and dad's money. I didn't judge you for wanting those things, I said. I judged you for thinking those things made you better than me. For calling me names and putting me down. For treating me like I was worth less because I valued different things. She looked away, staring out at the darkening ocean visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I was jealous of you, she admitted, so quietly I almost didn't hear her. You always knew who you were and what you wanted. You didn't need anyone's approval. I've spent my whole life seeking validation from others. The admission stunned me. Amber, jealous of me? It seemed impossible. Including Bradley? I asked carefully. Her face crumpled slightly. Especially Bradley. His family has expectations. So many expectations. This engagement party was supposed to show them I belong in their world. That I have taste, class, connections. She laughed bitterly. And now they know the truth, that I'm just a middle-class girl playing dress-up, who didn't even recognize her own sister's success. For the first time that evening, I felt a twinge of sympathy for my sister. Is that why the party had to be so extravagant? $300,000 for one evening seems excessive even for the Pierce family. Amber nodded miserably. Bradley's mother has been watching my every move. His ex-girlfriend comes from old money, the kind that whispers instead of shouts. I wanted to prove I could create something elegant enough for their world. She looked around the luxurious suite. And I chose your resort to do it. The irony would be funny if it weren't so humiliating. The party is beautiful, I offered. Everyone seems impressed. It doesn't matter now, she said. Everyone will remember tonight as the time Amber Walker tried to kick her resort owner sister out of her own establishment. I'll be a laughingstock. Only if you continue acting like this is a catastrophe, I pointed out. You could embrace it instead. Be proud of your sister's success. Use it to your advantage. She looked at me skeptically.
How?
Tell people you specifically chose my resort because you wanted to support family. That we planned the reveal as a celebration. Change the narrative. Amber considered this, her PR-oriented mind clearly seeing the potential. That could work. But why would you help me after how I treated you? It was a fair question, one I had been asking myself. Why was I offering her a way out after years of her put-downs and tonight's public humiliation? Because despite everything, you're my sister, I said simply. And maybe it's time we both stopped letting our childhood dynamics define our adult relationship. Amber wiped away a tear, careful not to further smudge her makeup. I don't deserve your help. Probably not, I agreed, which made her laugh unexpectedly. But I'm offering it anyway. A knock at the door interrupted us. Bradley poked his head in, his expression wary. Is everything okay in here? The guests are wondering where the bride-to-be has gone. We're working it out, I told him. Give us a few more minutes. He nodded and withdrew, but not before giving Amber a look that contained more genuine concern than I would have expected from someone I had assumed was just another status-seeking socialite. He really loves you, doesn't he? I asked after he left. Amber nodded. Despite all my insecurities and drama. I don't know why. Maybe because he sees the real you beneath all the designer labels and social climbing. I'm not sure I even know who the real me is anymore, she admitted. I've been playing a role for so long. Well, I said, standing up and offering her my hand. Tonight might be a good opportunity to start finding out. Shall we rejoin your engagement party? I believe we have a new narrative to establish. After a moment's hesitation, Amber took my hand and stood. I need to fix my makeup first. Use the bathroom through there, I said, pointing. It has the best lighting in the resort. I designed it myself. As Amber disappeared into the bathroom, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. The evening had taken a turn I never could have predicted. The satisfaction of seeing Amber's shock had been sweet but fleeting. What remained was something more complex, a tentative bridge across years of misunderstanding and hurt. When Amber emerged, her makeup flawlessly restored, she looked more like herself, but somehow different, a little humbler, perhaps. Ready? I asked. She nodded. Mackenzie? Thank you. And I'm sorry. For tonight and for a lot of things. I know, I said. Let's go celebrate your engagement. Together, we walked back toward the ballroom, ready to face the curious guests and begin writing a new chapter in our complicated sisterhood. The remainder of the evening passed in a surreal blur. Following our conversation, Amber and I rejoined the party arm in arm, presenting a united front that immediately set the rumor mill ablaze. As I had suggested, Amber smoothly spun a narrative about intentionally hosting her engagement party at her successful sister's resort as a show of family support. Of course I knew it was Mackenzie's resort. I overheard her telling a cluster of Bradley's relatives. We wanted to keep it a surprise for tonight. Family supporting family. Isn't that what the Pierce values are all about? The older woman she was addressing, Bradley's aunt, I presumed, nodded approvingly, and I had to suppress a smile at Amber's quick adaptation. She had always been skilled at social navigation. Bradley, to his credit, followed Amber's lead without question, adding his own embellishments to the story. Mackenzie's business acumen is exactly what attracted me to the Walker family, he told his father, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Self-made success is something the Pierces have always valued. Isn't that right, Dad? I found myself warming to Bradley as the night progressed. Beneath his privileged exterior seemed to be a decent man who genuinely cared for my sister. When Amber was pulled away by a group of friends, he approached me at the bar. "Your sister loves you, you know," he said without preamble. "She talks about you all the time." "Really?" I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. He nodded. Not always positively, he admitted with a small smile, but with a kind of reverence. Mackenzie always knew what she wanted. Mackenzie never cared what people thought. Mackenzie wouldn't let anyone tell her what to do. I absorbed this information, trying to reconcile it with a sister who had called me a beggar just hours earlier. "The engagement party was her idea," Bradley continued. "Not the extravagance. That was pressure from my family, but the location. She found Azure Bay Resort in a travel magazine. There was an article about the owner, you, though without a photo. When she saw the name Walker, she was convinced it had to be a coincidence. Why didn't she just call me and ask?" He shrugged. "Pride, maybe? Fear of confirming that her struggling sister had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams while she was still trying to prove herself? I don't know. Amber is complicated." "That's one word for it," I agreed. "She's been under a lot of pressure," he said, his expression softening. "My family can be overwhelming. Old money, old expectations. Amber felt she had to be perfect to be accepted." I felt a twinge of sympathy. "And you? Do you expect her to be perfect?" "God, no," he laughed. "I fell in love with Amber when I found her crying in the coat closet at a charity gala, eating stolen appetizers and complaining about how much her shoes hurt. That's the real Amber, funny, slightly ridiculous, and much more genuine than she lets most people see." This image of my sister, vulnerable, human, was so at odds with the perfectly polished socialite I was used to that I couldn't help but smile. "I hope she shows that side of herself more often," I said honestly. Our conversation was interrupted by Diana, who approached with a discreet but urgent expression. "Ms. Walker, your parents are asking to speak with both you and Amber. They're in the library." Bradley and I exchanged glances. "I'll find Amber," he offered. The resort's library was a cozy space designed for intimate gatherings, with leather armchairs, a fireplace, and walls lined with carefully curated books. My parents were waiting there, looking somewhat out of place amidst the luxury. "Mackenzie," my mother said when I entered. "Is Amber coming?" "Bradley went to find her," I replied, taking a seat across from them. "Is everything okay?" My father cleared his throat. "We've been doing a lot of thinking in the last couple of hours. About you, about Amber, about how we've treated both of you over the years." "Dad, we don't need to do this tonight," I said, suddenly uncomfortable. "This is Amber's engagement party." "We do need to do this," my mother insisted gently. "We've waited too long already." Before she could continue, the door opened and Amber entered with Bradley. Her expression was guarded, her body language tense. "What's going on?" she asked, looking between our parents and me. "Is this an intervention or something?" "No, honey," my mother said. "Please, both of you, sit down." Amber and Bradley took the remaining seats. The five of us formed an awkward circle, the sounds of the party muffled behind the heavy library door. "Your father and I owe both of you an apology," my mother began. "We've spent the last hour talking, and we've realized how unfairly we've treated you, both of you, in different ways." "Mom, really, this isn't necessary," Amber protested, looking uncomfortable. "It is necessary," my father said firmly. "Mackenzie, we failed to recognize your ambition and determination. We dismissed your practical nature as a limitation rather than the strength it clearly is. Looking at what you've built here." He gestured around us. "It's extraordinary. And we gave you no support, no encouragement." I swallowed hard against the unexpected emotion rising in my throat. "And Amber," he continued, turning to my sister, "we did you a different disservice. We praised your social skills and beauty, but never pushed you to develop independence or resilience. We treated you like a precious object rather than a capable person. Amber's eyes widened, clearly unused to hearing anything but praise from our parents. We created this rivalry between you, my mother added, her voice thick with emotion, by constantly comparing you, by having different expectations and standards. That's on us, not on either of you. The room fell silent except for the faint crackling of the fire. Bradley, looking distinctly uncomfortable to be witnessing such a personal family moment, shifted in his seat. Perhaps I should give you all some privacy, he suggested. No, Amber said, surprising me by reaching for his hand.
Stay.
Please. She turned back to our parents, her expression unreadable. So, what now? We just forget the last 30 years and start fresh.
Of course not, my father said.
But maybe we can all be more honest with each other going forward. Set better boundaries. Communicate more openly. I looked at Amber, trying to gauge her reaction. For once, her perfect mask had slipped, revealing the vulnerability beneath. I've resented you for so long, she said suddenly, addressing me directly. For being so sure of yourself. For not caring what anyone thought. Even tonight, when I saw you in that simple dress, looking so comfortable in your own skin while I was strapped into this designer gown, barely able to breathe. I was jealous. I've always been jealous. The raw honesty of her admission stunned me into silence. And I've resented you, I finally responded, for having everything come so easily. For being the favorite. For never having to prove yourself the way I always did. Easy. Amber laughed bitterly. You think my life has been easy? Do you know how exhausting it is to constantly monitor every word, every gesture, every outfit, terrified of disappointing everyone? At least you got to be yourself. I've been playing a role for so long, I'm not sure who I am without it. Bradley squeezed her hand supportively, and I saw genuine love in the gesture. We've both been living in reaction to each other, I realized aloud. You rebelling against my practicality by embracing luxury and status. Me rejecting anything that might be seen as frivolous or superficial because that was your territory. Two sides of the same coin, my father murmured. I don't know if we can fix this in one night, Amber said, looking around at all of us. There's a lot of water under the bridge. We don't have to fix everything tonight, I agreed. But maybe we can start. My mother wiped away a tear. That's all we're asking for. A start. Amber studied me for a long moment, then extended her hand across the space between us. To new beginnings? I took her hand, feeling the first tentative threads of a new kind of sisterhood forming between us. To new beginnings. Bradley cleared his throat. Not to interrupt this important moment, but there are about 200 guests out there wondering where the guest of honor has gone. Amber stood, smoothing her elaborate gown. Duty calls. But this conversation isn't over. As we prepared to rejoin the party, she paused at the door. Mackenzie? Would you consider being my maid of honor? I know it's asking a lot after everything, but... Yes, I said, surprising myself with how right it felt. I'd be honored. For the first time that evening, perhaps for the first time in years, Amber's smile was completely genuine. Not the practiced, perfect smile she showed the world, but the real smile of the little sister I had almost forgotten existed. Together, we returned to the party, our shared history still complicated but our future suddenly filled with new possibilities. 6 months have passed since that fateful night at Azure Bay Resort. The seasons have changed, bringing winter storms and spring renewal to the coastline visible from my office window. Much has changed in our family as well, shifts as subtle yet profound as the tides reshaping the shoreline below. The expansion of Azure Bay is well underway. Our second location, a smaller boutique property in the San Juan Islands, will open next summer. The business continues to thrive, though I've made one significant change to my approach. I no longer hide my success. My name and face appear in our marketing materials. I give interviews to travel publications, and I've even spoken at several hospitality industry conferences. The biggest change, however, has been in my family relationships. My parents have made genuine efforts to repair the damage caused by years of favoritism and misplaced expectations. They visited the resort several times, my father taking particular interest in the business aspects, while my mother marvels at the design elements. Their pride, while welcome, no longer feels as crucial to my sense of self-worth as it once might have. And then there's Amber. My sister has undergone perhaps the most remarkable transformation of all. 2 months after her engagement party, she shocked everyone by enrolling in design school, pursuing a passion she'd suppressed for years in favor of social climbing. She's reduced her social media presence dramatically and speaks more authentically when we talk, without the carefully curated persona she maintained for so long. Her relationship with Bradley has deepened as she's allowed herself to be more genuine. Their wedding plans have shifted significantly. Instead of the extravagant, society page affair initially envisioned, they're planning a more intimate ceremony on the private beach at Azure Bay, with just 70 guests instead of the original 400. I want people there who actually care about us, Amber explained when she asked if I would host the wedding. Not just people who want to be seen at the event of the season. Today, Amber is visiting to discuss final wedding arrangements. We've scheduled a proper meeting in my office, followed by lunch, a new monthly tradition we've established to rebuild our relationship. When she arrives, I barely recognize my sister. Gone are the designer labels and excessive jewelry. Instead, she wears jeans, a simple blouse, and minimal makeup. Her blonde hair, once styled within an inch of its life, falls in natural waves around her shoulders. The caterer called, she says after hugging me hello. They want to know if we're still doing the seafood tower for the reception. It's your wedding, I remind her. Whatever you and Bradley want. She smiles, settling into the chair across from my desk. That's the problem. There are too many choices. Remember when I used to be so decisive? Everything had to be just so. You mean when you were a demanding diva who made the staff cry? I tease, our relationship now solid enough to joke about the past. She laughs, not offended. God, I was awful, wasn't I? I still cringe thinking about how I behaved at the engagement party. You've come a long way since then, I assure her. And she has. The journey hasn't been smooth. We've had arguments and setbacks, moments when old patterns threaten to resurface. But each time, we've managed to pull back from the brink, to communicate more honestly than we ever did as children or young adults. Have you talked to Mom and Dad this week? Amber asks, changing the subject. Dad called yesterday. He's been researching investment opportunities for the resort expansion. I think he's trying to make up for not supporting me earlier. At least he's trying, Amber says thoughtfully. That's more than I can say for Bradley's parents. They're still struggling with the idea that I'm actually going to work after we're married. His mother sent me listings for charity boards I could join instead, more appropriate for a Pierce wife. She rolls her eyes. And what did you tell her? That I appreciate her input, but I'm going to finish my design degree. Amber grins. 5 years ago, I would have immediately dropped out of school and joined every charity board she suggested. Her newfound backbone makes me prouder than I can express. How did Bradley take it? He backed me completely. Told his mother that times have changed and he supports my career ambitions. Her expression softens. He's been my rock through all of this. Turns out I actually managed to find a good one. We spend the next hour finalizing wedding details, the menu, the flowers, the seating arrangements. It feels surreal to be working together so collaboratively after years of competition and resentment. As we're wrapping up, Amber grows serious. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, not just at the engagement party, but our whole relationship growing up. What about it? I ask cautiously. I think I always defined myself in opposition to you. You were the smart one, so I had to be the pretty one. You were the serious one, so I had to be the fun one. You saved your money, so I spent mine. It was like there wasn't room for both of us to be complex, whole people. Her insight surprises me. I did the same thing, I admit. Rejected anything that seemed frivolous or superficial because that was your territory. We limited ourselves based on this stupid rivalry that wasn't even really about us, Amber says. It was about mom and dad's expectations, society's narrow views of women's value, our own insecurities. When did you get so wise? I ask, only half joking. Therapy, she replies with a wry smile. Twice a week since the engagement party. Turns out I have some issues to work through. We both laugh, the sound lightening the mood. I'm proud of you, I tell her sincerely, for doing the work, for finding your own path. I'm proud of you too, she responds. Not just for all this. She gestures around my office, indicating the resort, but for being willing to try again with me, with our family after everything. It would have been easier to write us all off. Easier, maybe, I acknowledge, but not better. The success means more when I have people to share it with. As we stand to leave for lunch, Amber pauses by the window overlooking the resort grounds. You know what I've realized, she says thoughtfully. Success isn't what I thought it was. It's not the biggest house or the most expensive handbag or marrying into the right family. It's building something meaningful, whether that's a business or a relationship or just a life that feels authentic. That sounds suspiciously like something I would say. I tease. She grins. Well, maybe you were right about some things. We head to the restaurant, walking side by side through the resort I built from nothing. Staff members greet us warmly, many of them now familiar with the story of the Walker sisters' reconciliation. Over lunch, our conversation turns to the future, Amber's design studies, my expansion plans, our parents' upcoming anniversary. For the first time in our adult lives, we talk as friends rather than rivals, each secure enough in our own identity to celebrate the other's successes and support her struggles. As we finish our meal, Amber raises her water glass in a toast. To writing our own stories, she says, instead of letting others write them for us. I clink my glass against hers. To writing our own stories. Later that evening, after Amber has left to meet Bradley, I walk alone along the beach below the resort. The setting sun casts golden light across the water, illuminating the path ahead. I think about the journey that brought me here, the struggles, the setbacks, the silent victories, and finally, the very public vindication. Success, I've discovered, really is the best revenge. But forgiveness is the best path to peace. Having achieved both, I can finally move forward unburdened by the past, neither defined by my sister's perception, nor confined by my reaction to it. The resort stands behind me, a testament to what can be built with determination and vision. But the healing of our family, while less tangible, feels like an even greater achievement, a different kind of sanctuary created through honesty, boundary setting, and the courage to begin again. Have you ever had to stand your ground with family members who underestimated you? How did you handle it? Share your stories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember that sometimes the most profound growth comes from the most painful experiences, and that it's never too late to rewrite the narrative of your relationships. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you the courage to create your own path to success and healing.